Awesome. Well, let's get started. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's webinar with SL Rack about discover the future of flat roof design with German engineered east-west racking. I'd like to introduce Benjamin Ball. He's the head of sales at SL Rack, and Patrick Geig, product manager at SL Rack. They will be hosting the webinar and presenting. Also here is Sonja Gerlicher, who most of you probably know from all the years in racking sales in Canada. So welcome to the webinar. And I'd also like to mention that if you do have questions, please use the chat function in the app and ask away. We're going to try our best to answer those in the chat as we go. And then on top of that, we will answer them at the end as well, verbally, if they're not already answered throughout the presentation, because that may also be the case. But yeah, Benjamin and Patrick, if you guys would like to take it from here.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us in the presentation. Thank you for the introduction, Danny. I really appreciate it. And also that you give us the stage to introduce our product to the Canadian market. Today, we're here to talk about the fast flat, which will be done by our product manager and Patrick Geig later on. Just for me, a couple of minutes to share some information about SL Rack, who we are, what we do. I'm sure you've heard of us before, at least I hope so. Some information's up front. Contrary to some assumptions, SL Rack is actually in no way affiliated with Schletter Group, because we get the question less and less now, but more and more from other markets. We're not a subsidiary of Samilia, but we are a family business, and we only share the same founder, Ludwig Schletter. From the outset, SL Rack has specialized in providing a one-stop shop solution, which means we focus on being a single point of contact for everything related to PFL substructures on roofs or open spaces. So here we combine innovation with a never-ending learning curve. This is why we are required to have your feedback, as you can see here, constant innovation. We perfect our systems with additional products and optimize it every single day. So what does this mean for you? As you can see in our philosophy, you already talked about the innovation. We deliver 100% pre-assembled, because you all know no loose parts means no lost parts, which means no hassle on the roof and likely no damage. We can pretty much guarantee the fastest installation possible. We work for maximum job site efficiency and safety. This has enabled us to quickly grow in the last couple of years. From a handful of employees actually to about 200 employees. We have installed above 26 gigawatt right now in different markets since we have been founded about 8 years ago. And with the fast flat, which will now be introduced in the next couple of slides in the next half an hour, 45 minutes by Patrick Geig, we are closing on 200 megawatts, have surpassed 150 megawatts since the launch not even a year ago, one click at a time, which is basically the philosophy behind this product. So Patrick, if you feel ready, feel free to take away. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Benjamin. So for a quick overview, I will just start with some key facts from our fast flat system, and I will show you all the details and all the components. And after I talked about the system, you feel free to ask questions, write them in the chat if you have questions. Feel free to ask anything. I hope I can answer every question of you. So we will start with some key facts. As Benjamin mentioned, our system is 100% pre-assembled. We don't need any tools for the installation of the basic frame and the shoes. We have the fastest installation on the market because we only click in the system and then we are done. Our system is always 10% tilt, so we use the same components for a south system or an east-west system. So you don't have to use additional components in your warehouse for different installations. You only have one system and you can use it both ways. We are fully bonded. Only one point of the grounding is used per array, and we can extend these arrays to 30 by 30 meters on the roof. So you have like big places where you can put the system and you maximize the roof Usability. Our system is made out of different materials. We use aluminum, we use galvanized steel. This is specially coated for us with ZM430 coating. It's related to corrosion level 4 and stainless steel. One quick overview about ZM430. It's a European coating, and it's it's an innovative coating from our steel suppliers here in Europe. Our system is certified to UL 2703 and UL 3741. Our phosphate system is fully engineered here in Germany, and we develop all the time to make the products better and for you easier to use. So with that said, our system is completely optimized in any way. We made multiple tests, like we were in the wind tunnel at the EFI Institute here in Aachen in Germany, and we tested every way of the system, so it gets better and better over the time we developed it. We have, with that said, with our wind simulation we were able to reduce the ballast to an absolute minimum that's needed on your roof. Of course, the ballast is always suitable for the projects you're using it, but we can guarantee you the lowest ballast that is possible. As Benjamin or I mentioned earlier, our system is available to be used as a south system or an east-west system. In our opinion, the east-west system is the future. Because what are the positive points of the east-west system? So with east-west systems, we have lower pressure coefficients because we build like an own triangle roof on the roof. So we don't have a wall where the wind can collide, and that's even better for the whole installation on the roof. We have the east-west system. We can use it on any roof. We can use it on any roof components. We can use it on any size of the roof. You're flexible to use it anywhere you like, or you can install it whenever you like. We have, with the east-west system, you can put more modules on your roof on the same square feet. When we install our east-west system, we only need 4 components to install it, the complete system. We have our basic frame. I will show the component later. We have our shoes, and we have our clamps, and everything else is additional. We have our ballast bracket to hold the ballast, and stuff like lightning protection, etc. We can provide, with the Fastlet system, we can provide for you the fastest installation that's possible on the market. As I mentioned earlier, we only have a click connection to install the system. We have a basic rail, a basic frame that's the whole part, or that's the heart of the system. When we speak about utilization of the availability on roof space, you can see here in a quick overview that when we use a south-facing system, we can only install 12 modules because we always have to use spacers between the rows to make sure that the next module is getting its peak performance. With the east-west system, we don't have to use that amount of spacers, so every module gets its peak performance over a greater period of time during the day. So yes, the south system gets a higher peak advantage, but this east-west system gets advantage over the day. So even if you have like a lower peak performance, like 10% lower peak performance, you get like a 50% greater overall performance on the roof. Here we have like a different calculation. Here we have like a quite big roof and a quite long roof, and you can see here when you want to make the south orientation field, you always have like the big gaps. I hope you see it on your screen. You have like the big gaps between the rows of your system, and that's limiting your modules you can put on the roof. As you can see here, when you have the east-west facing system, you can put 110 modules more than on the south system. So you can put over 40 kilowatts peak more on the roof. Yes, the peak performance is a little bit lower than on the south orientation, but as I mentioned before, when you have like a south orientation, the peak performance is always during the daytime at 12 a.m. or 12 p.m. Sorry, 1 a.m., 1 p.m. around this time. But if you have an east-west system, you're not fixed on the time that you're using, because in the morning hours, the east-west system is producing energy as well as in the later hours, because as you all know, the sun is going from left to right or east to west, sorry, not left to right, east to west, and you don't have this peak during the daytime. As you can see on the next installation, this is only a small build here. We only have 4 modules here, but you can already see the difference in the size that's needed to install the system. On the left side, when you're using the east-west system, you can clearly see that the module only have a small gap in between. And on the south system, you have to use the spacer to guarantee the performance of the module. So you have the space in the middle. If you require some space in the east-west system, you can use it as well. You can just use a spacer from us if you need like a walking path or something like that.
Patrick, if I can quickly jump in, what is common to do in the German market when it comes to spacers between the east-west? Do you see a lot of people using spacers, or do you see most people not using spacers and they just go by the 30 by 30 meter array and then they have the space between those arrays?
So in the German market or in the European market, it's the east-west system is the dominating system here, and spacers are only used where they're really required. Like sometimes you have to make sure that you can walk to some parts of the roof to make sure you can do the annual cleaning or stuff like that. But if you're not required to use the spacers, it's preferred not to use them and maximize the utilization of the roof.
Yeah.
I want to give you a quick overview from our system in the next 3 minutes. This will be a short video. So just So thank you for your attention. I will just add some informations about the video. Okay, sorry. So now, as you saw in the video and as I described earlier, the system only requires 4 components. The heart of the system here is the basic frame. As you can see, it's a 1190 millimeter long rail. I call it rail. And this is the basic for every system we use. You can use it for the east-west system or for the south system. You just turn it around or put it in the direction you want. We can use the basic frame for modules with 1120 millimeters to 1140 millimeters. So the basic module size for solar panels. You're not limited in any length of the module. You can just use whatever length you like, because if you have a longer module, you just put the rows a little bit far away. One big advantage of the basic frame and why the basic frame is 1190 millimeters long is the possibility to transport it on a Euro pallet. We can transport 200 basic frames on 1 Euro pallet. So we can put around 100 kilowatts or about 50 kilowatts to 100 kilowatts peak performance on 1 Euro pallet. So for your warehouse, it's really, really effective way to store components. Everything on the basic frame you see here is pre-assembled. You only have to open up the top part, so then you can use it. The second part you have to use when you want to install the SL fast-flat system is the base plate. We have kind of variants in the base plates. As you can see here, we have the base plate EPDM and we have the base plate HDPE. You can see here these vary in size, and we have one big advantage in these base plates. The base plate doesn't use, it's only been used for a base plate to be installed on the roof, but it's also our connector. As you saw in the video, you connect 2 basic frames together with 1 base plate, and you go on and go on and go on. So you have the base plate for putting it on the roof. You can vary your base plate as you like. Like if you have a rigid roof, you can use the smaller base plate, and you have like a little bit softer roof, you use the bigger base plate. But this will be also calculated in our planning tool. So if you want to install the system here, you can choose between very options you can install. And the basic frame and the base plate is always the heart of the system. You can see again, it's really, really simple. As you can see, you only have to put the noses in the base plate and you click it down under. We installed it here multiple times and you really hear a loud clicking sound when you click it in. So you're really sure that it's clicked in. So there's no, so you're sure that it's clicked in, yes. Here you can see an example of an installation done here in Germany. You can see the basic frame, you can see the base plate, and in the background you can see the basic strut. The basic strut was also shown in the video, and the basic strut is here to connect our rows together so that the system gets more rigid. As I mentioned before, if you need some spacers for the east-west orientation system, you can just choose from 3 different lengths in the spaces. We have a 220 millimeter, 390 millimeters, and 700 millimeter spacers. The 220 millimeter spacer is only for the east-west system, and it's the perfect size for a walking path through our blocks, because it's wide enough that you can walk around there, but it's not that wide that you lose any space on the roof. You don't have to use the spaces if you don't want to involve a walking path or something that you don't have to use the spaces. You only have to be sure that after 30 by 30 meters, you make one break for the thermal compensation. The quarter point strut is the main connection part between the rows of basic frames. As I mentioned before, a bigger square is resulting in a big advantage for the ballast. If you have big squares, you can use really less ballast than with small squares. So how do we install the quarter strut? Here is also the big issue, the big advantage for our system is here. You just click it in and it's done. You don't need any tools for the installation. I mean, we are nearly 3/4 through the presentation here now, and you haven't seen any tool. So you're on the roof and everything is nearly installed without any tools required. The quarter point strut is also used to make sure that your cables are safe and your cables are in a secure way, because when you don't want to see the cables laying around in the water, so you can put them in the quarter strut and they're safe. Here you can see a big system in Germany, and you can see the use of the quarter strut perfectly, that this was perfectly aligned, and it's really nice installed system here. For the additional option, or an additional option, is the ballast bracket. We're using the fast-fit system as a ballasted system, so you need some ballast to install it on the roof. You put the ballast in the ballast bracket. We have multiple choices here to use the ballast bracket. You can use multiple stones. You're not in any way you have to wherever you can use every size of stones you have available here at your local supplier. You only have to connect the basic frames to the ballast bracket with 2 universal clamps. You don't have to do anything else.
I can quickly jump in here, Patrick. Most of the ballast will go into the normal H-frames, and only where you require extra ballast do you need the ballast bracket, right? So most systems don't use a lot of these ballast brackets.
Yes, I wanted to mention it here in the picture, because as you can see here, we are using the ballast bracket on the right side, and on the left side, you can see the stones laying under the module and on the basic frame. It's no problem for us to lay down the stones on the basic frame. It's made for this. But as Danny mentioned before, if you have a lot of ballast you need, then you have to use the ballast bracket to install the ballast here. But you can see the difference here on the right and left side of the module. Here you can see our universal clamp. And one thing is to mention that this is the first part of the system where you need some tools. And you need one screwdriver with Torx 40. We develop our systems to be as user-friendly as possible. So our philosophy is that you only use one tool when you install the system. And this one tool you have to use to install our system is the Torx 40 and nothing else. So you don't have to change the bits all the time. You only have one bit, Torx 40. We have always the same torque settings. We have 10 Newton meters of torque for every clamp you use on the flat roof. So you just make you use one tool and you can do everything. As you can see here, when you have a south-orientated system, you're required to use a wind deflector to reduce the ballast load. Here you can again see our universal clamp to install the wind deflector on the south system. It's important to notice, or important to mention, that you don't have to use a wind deflector at all if it's possible in your area. You don't have to use any wind deflector when you're using the east-west system. That's why here in Germany, we prefer the east-west orientation of the system because you have one part less. This is the second module clamp, or the second clamp you have to use when you install our system. The clamp is fully assembled as well, and this clamp will secure your modules on the basic frame. You just click it in here, and in the basic frame, you can see that little launcher here, click it in. So you can just click it in, and then you clamp every module from 28 to 45 millimeters frame height. It's important to mention that this is also Torx 40, 10 Newton meters of torque, so you don't have to change any tools at all. These clamps are used in every system we build. This is used for the flat roof system, this is used for the pitch roof system, this is used for everything. So here is again the part with the warehouse efficiency. You have one clamp for every system from SL Rack. Here you can see the module clamps installed in alongside clamping here on the modules. As you can see, the end clamp fits perfectly for different modules and different sizes as well. When you don't want to use the water point strut for your cables, you're also able to use a cable clip for the cable management. This cable clip can click in to the quarter point strut. It can also click into the basic frame on multiple spots, and it can secure all your cables. It's important to mention that it's reusable, and you can always open it up again with one finger, put another cable in, and then close it again. So you don't have to be sure that you have some tools to open up the cable management. So this was the quick overview of our system. Later, you're able to ask any questions you like, and I will answer all your questions. As I mentioned before, the system gets planned or tooled by us. So how do you get a layout or ballast plan quote for your whole project you want to assemble? So you contact your Frankensolar account manager, and you have to provide some information so we get the detailed calculations for you done. You have to make sure that you completed the intake form, that you provide the layout, the module data sheet, and the project objectives. After that, you're finished and the rest is done by us. We design the system, we design the roof for you. You get your whole assembly shown on the screen, and you also get the whole ballast plan and everything else. Frankensolar adds pricing and supports the module selection if required. They also can provide you some information about the module they would choose for your system. We have one advantage here. We are not forced to make a system price. With our system, every component is priced for themselves. So if you want to change some parts of the system, it's no problem at all. You can vary your pricing here. So this would be the first part of the presentation done. I hope you have many questions to ask to us.
Yeah, there's lots of questions out there. Definitely. Actually, one that just came in from Alan's. Maybe Sonia, do you want to answer that one? Has SL completed third-party peer review?
Yes, we have, and I just put it in the chat here.
Yeah. So just as of last week, I think last Friday or something, you said?
Yeah, last week.
We have received the third-party review letter. So yeah, so that's really good news. Let's see, what other questions have there been? I think there's been a fair bit of question. Actually, there's one. Let's see here. On inter-row spacing, I think we've kind of already touched on that, but what are the different spacers and when would you use which ones?
So if you want to use spacers for inter-row spacing, you have three options available. You can use the 220 meter spacer, the 390 millimeter spacer, or the 700 millimeter spacer. It really depends on your needs or on your decisions. If you want to have like a small walking path, I would recommend the 220 millimeter spacer because you lose the least amount of module area on the roof. If you require a big amount of space, I don't know why, but maybe it is as it is, you can use the bigger spaces as well. For the south orientation system, the 220 millimeter spacer is no option because it doesn't provide a good enough module distance between the modules, so your next module gets affected and gets at least peak performance.
What about 2020 building code? Maybe Sonia, you can answer that. Does it comply with 2020 building code?
Yes, we do, and also with the local interpretations, like the BC building code that uses the NBCC 2020 as a basis, and the Alberta building code in Ontario. They all have their own codes in Quebec, so we comply with all of that.
Question on anchoring. Do you have an anchoring method at this point?
Yes, we have an anchoring method at this point, and we are still developing far more anchoring solutions for the Canadian market.
Yes, Patrick, this is an important point that I was approaching in the very beginning of the presentation. We always require feedback to make sure our philosophy is intact, that we basically always try to optimize and perfectionize our system. So every time we get feedback from Sonja, which is also highlighted here in the last slide of the presentation as the main key account manager for Franken-Solar in the North American market, we are pretty much in a daily exchange regarding the Canadian needs. So I've seen in the chat, typical Torx 40 could have been something else. Surely could have been, if this is the only thing that keeps us from using the system, let me make sure to get you guys a couple of Torx 40 bits. But apart from that, everything is being reviewed. The way the stones are basically kept in the rails is reviewed, especially for the Canadian market. Patrick just said anchoring will be reviewed again specifically for the Canadian market to make sure we always address your common needs and just to make sure you get the best system in terms of overall price to performance required by what you need.
There's also a question about ballast on south facing versus east-west facing, asking if more panels are on the roof, is the total ballast not similar to a south facing system?
This depends on the roof, most likely. But as I mentioned before, when you're using this east-west orientation as shown here in the picture, you're building your own triangle roof. And this is better for your wind to flow over the system than when you have a south orientated system, because then you have like a wall where the wind gets pushed again. So here you need more ballast that the whole system doesn't get damaged.
Yeah. Also, like the big thing to mention here is this system has extensively been tested and developed in a wind channel at the IFI Institute in Aachen. If you look at the system, it's also quite close to the roof, which, you know, some people, if they first look at it, they're like, well, we would like a little bit more clearance under the solar panels. But with that comes more ballast requirements, and everyone wants less ballast. So that's a trade-off that you have to do, right, in order to get the lowest ballast. It also was tested, unlike pretty much any system that I'm aware of in Canada, in an east-west configuration. So the wind tunnel testing was done with 2 panels in an east-west configuration, which is not my understanding of what's happening elsewhere. And that gives you a huge advantage in an east-west configuration. When it comes to ballast, quickly, I want to add that to what we are seeing is that the PSF in east-west application in most applications is significantly less than in the south-facing. And when we talk about ballast stones, you're right when you're saying the panels add weight as well. So the amount of ballast stones required is actually huge hugely less in an east-west application than in a south-facing, because you do have more weight in the panels itself. So that's another huge advantage. Your installers are going to love the system because they're going to carry around a quarter or less of the ballast zones that they would be using on a south-facing.
Yes. One thing I would like to mention is, as you can see here in the picture, the distance between the modules here on the high point of the system is as little as possible. That's the best thing for the wind, because the wind can't creep in onto the modules and make the modules lift or produce lift. So that's important, that the space between the modules is as little as possible. And we managed it to do here as good as possible.
Let's see. Khaled was asking a question about metal roof using with a S5 clamp. Would that work? Maybe Sonia, you can answer that.
When you want to use the S5 clamp, the fast flat isn't the right solution for you, but we have another solution. I think Sonia will provide it to you. That we have the other solution. It's an FLA2 solution you can use with the S5 clamp on metal roofs. Yes.
In general, our recommendation on a metal roof, a standing seam metal roof, would be to go flush mount, as if you're using an elevated system such as this, your penetration, roof penetration on like how much you can install on a roof is going to be significantly reduced, and your cost is going to be significantly higher than using a flush mount solution through SL. And they have really good solutions there that are very economical, and that would be our recommendation generally on a S5 roof or standing seam roof. Dave asked, will the system come with stamped drawings for permitting and construction?
Yes.
So maybe you can mention that we have, well, I
We
guess
have an engineer. Yeah, we have an engineer on staff, and we can provide stems for the 8 most important solar provinces in Canada. Yeah,
maybe important, maybe the wrong word, but the most where most solar is being installed today. There are also if you're one out of one of those provinces, for example, Quebec would not be in that province, I believe. It would not be a province that is currently covered. We can find a solution there as well through a third-party engineer.
So we will find ways to have stems either way.
Correct. And then the tool itself is also certified and stamped that you have, right, for all provinces. Is that correct?
Yes, it has been reviewed by Exactus, and we have a blessing letter that everything is implemented according to the wind tunnel test in our tool. Absolutely.
Dave Wall asked about critter guard. I know that's not something you guys deal with in Europe, but critter guard to protect wiring. Are there any options for critter guard?
Is the question for me or for Sonia?
Sonia can answer it. She probably knows it better what the situation is there.
So it's a big deal in Canada, critter guard, but I believe in Germany it's not really a deal.
Correct.
No,
definitely
in Germany.
So critter guards, I think there's some provinces that are requiring it, and then also if you're in a multi-residential unit, generally you require it. So like an apartment building. So in that scenario, no, they do not have a solution. One of the solutions there would be to go with Tygo optimizers or something like that. Then you get around the rapid shutdown, the critter guard requirement. But yes, there's no real solution right now for that. But maybe something for SL to work on. Maybe you guys can think of some solutions.
Definitely. I already took a note. This is exactly a good example of what I said earlier. Yes.
See if we had any other questions, but anything come in.
The top values for east-west, I would say, are speed. Like somebody asked the top three, the values for going east-west versus south.
Yeah.
It's lower cost, lower weight, more speed to install.
Yeah, I think that
Starting
the
with the lower
cost.
weight.
So I can answer that one actually. So the cost of the racking is significantly less because you don't need wind guards, for example. You need less ballast trays. Those are two major cost drivers. So it saves you about, I would say, probably about $30 a panel in racking costs. Also, roof penetration is, or solar penetration, I should say, is another major advantage because you really can, as Patrick showed in the example, put significantly more kilowatts peak on the roof, which then will produce more kilowatt hours. And this is, not something we would have recommended 10 years ago when panels cost $1.50 a watt. But with panel prices where they are, the economics have shifted. And what you're doing and what we have shown over and over again, and if you haven't done the math, we'd be happy to work through it with you. What east-west will give you in most application is a lower levelized cost of electricity, meaning every kilowatt hour you produce or your business owner that you're working with produces costs less than with a south-facing system. So that's something really important to keep in mind, because that's really what we're trying to do. We're not trying to design the system that brings out the most out of every kilowatt of solar panel that's installed, but rather we're trying to create the cheapest electricity possible, and east-west does that. So those would be my points. And the ballast, lower ballast is a big topic too. Norman asked about wire management, and maybe it was, yeah, how do you address wire management in general?
Yes. So as I mentioned before, we can do the wire management in the quarter point strut, and we have our cable clips here as well. As you can see here on the last picture of the presentation, you can see also big cable trays next to the system to put all the cables in one direction. And under the modules, the cables can be secured with the cable clips and the quarter point strut.
So in this case, on the right-hand side, that's the cable trays,
Yes.
right?
Yes, I'm not sure if you can see this. This is here, the cable tray where the cable will go through. That's the common way in Germany how to install the cables. And under the system, you can secure them with the cable clips and the quarter point strut.
Danny, can I just quickly share something? Because I've seen a question about de-installing basically the system if you've made any mistakes with the rails. And I think, Patrick, I will just take over sharing basically for a short second. This is just a detail, but I really want to show this because I think it speaks so well for us as a company. This is basically what we addressed when we said we have a special tool which we designed for de-installing if you've made a mistake. I mean, SL Rack is all about providing solutions and making it fun for everyone. So obviously, if you introduce a new system, we try it out day and night, day by day, week by week. Everything that comes up as annoying, even for experts like Patrick, we work on this immediately because we do not want to flush anything out into the system that we have to work on as much after we already launched it than before. Obviously, this would be unfair for everyone. So this is basically just a tool that you click into your tool grip, and then you can deinstall the rails from the footing, basically from the connectors every single time. And it also really shows our quality. We are using this ourselves on every form of exhibitions. We have basically our little example briefcases with rails and footing in it. And we install and deinstall, install and deinstall. I think some cases now have about 200 to 300, Patrick, correct me if I'm wrong, 200 to 300 uses of basically just showing how it works, how to connect it and how to reconnect it. And there's no wear and tear, not on the tool, not on the rail. You just bend it back into the original position and you can just do it over and over again. So this is really what the company is all about, giving the solution required for the market, making it fun, not punishing you for choosing SL Rack. And I just really wanted to show this for Simon's question, because as I said, I like it a lot. And the little eye right here, the little hole, has absolutely zero function. It's just to make it look like a dragon.
That's funny. I didn't know that.
That
We're just like, yeah, we have that tool as well, and we've used it at the trade show. And if any of you are popping by our warehouse here in Brampton, we have a test system set up in our lobby. We have taken that thing apart so many times, also at the trade show, and no problem. It snaps in just like on day one. So works great. If you don't have that tool, no sweat. I think you can use a screwdriver as well. You just need to be a little bit more careful to not damage it. But you know, we've done that as well. And if you're careful, it will snap right back into place afterwards as well.
Benjamin forgot one part about the Dragon. It also works.
Probably plenty, Patrick. I'm not talking about bottle openers and everything, but go ahead.
Yes. I just wanted to mention that the Dragon also provides us a bottle opener whenever we go out.
Yeah, that is very good to know.
So Danny, let's also just make a short agreement basically as a special deal for this conversation. This is just something I came up with spontaneously. Let me make sure to get you around 20 to 30 of these tools basically. So for everyone
Amazing.
trying out the fast flat,
Yeah.
the first time, make sure to get everyone one of these tools to try it for themselves to make sure that everyone understands the usability of everything. So let me get right on it after the webinar.
Also, I think it was Charles that asked a question about replacing module. I think it's, you know, how do you get to them in east-west if you don't have spacers? How do you get to the modules that are in the middle of an array? Because that could be a little bit of a pain point, right? When you don't have spacers, and that's why people like the spacers.
Yes, this could be a pain point if you don't use the spacers, but we have like all the time you have like a little bit of space in between the modules on the downside of the basic frame, and you can walk through there, but it's not really convenient, so we prefer to use the spaces here. But it's also, you can also use the spaces only every third or fourth row, so that you use the space on the roof to install the solar modules and don't use up with spaces.
Yeah, if I quickly can jump into, you know, how often do you actually have to replace a panel over a course of the year, over a course of a 20-year lifespan of a project? You know, module failures are not huge. I think if you have optimizers, that may be a bigger topic, or microinverters. But if you're really thinking about it, how many modules do you replace? It's not that many. If you do, yes, I think you probably have to remove a few panels. But if you think about the max array size of 30 by 30 meters, in that application, with the panels that we use, I think the most you'll ever have in like panels in a row would be 30 meters divided by 2.2 meters or so. For the average panel, you're at like 12 panels. So if it happens to be the one in the middle, you have to remove 5 panels. So it's not even that much that you'd have to replace. And the cost savings are significant. You know, they really are significant. I used the example internally here. If you think back 10 years, flush mounted solar, people used to have maintenance aisles on flush mount solar. And nobody does that anymore today, right? So that also was quite common back in the day, and eventually the space is worth more to just install solar panels.
So one quick thing I want to mention, our module clamp are reusable as often as you like. We have a special module clamp that will open when you unscrew them, so you don't have to worry when you want to undo one module that you have to hold the clamp and stuff like that. So the clamp will stay where you are and it will open automatically. You can pull out the module, put it back in, and then just screw it down. So it's really not a big deal with our module clamps.
Dave just asked a really good question about setbacks. And Sonia, maybe you can answer. You already answered it in the chat.
Yes, so we can basically design to whatever the client needs. Our minimum from the standpoint of our wind report is 500 millimeters. And usually I'm requested to use 1 meter, 2 meter, 3 meter, whatever. We're very flexible.
Roof leaks, I mean, you're not penetrating into the roof, so there shouldn't be any roof leaks, right?
Yes, we have specially designed our base plates here with a smooth EPDM underground, so you can really feel it that it's really smooth and we won't damage anything on the roof.
And it will, even if the racking moves a bit, the EPDM or HBDE, this material is riveted, permanently fixed to the rail.
Yes.
So if the rail was going to move, which it will minimally because of temperature differences, which is normal, our underlay is totally fixed, pre-installed, riveted, fixed for good.
Fixed to the racking. Yeah. Excellent. Lots of good questions here. See if anyone else has anything before we wrap up here. Okay,
Denny, I think we're good.
Yeah,
looks good.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, SL team, and thank you for everyone that joined the webinar today. So I thought it was really informative and great conversations. Until next time, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See
Bye
you.
all.
Bye-bye.
Bye all.